So at 16:30 hours, about 4:30 yesterday afternoon, officers were called to the Moorcroft Road area of Moseley, where they were seeking to locate a stolen vehicle that had been stolen a short while before nearby. When officers arrived at the scene from our Central Motorway Patrol Group, they identified two suspects in a stolen vehicle, which they proceeded to try and block in using their normal kind of tactics. One of the offenders was detained at the scene, but the other offender resisted the arrest quite violently. During the struggle, one of our officers was knocked to the ground, and the offender took the opportunity to jump into the vehicle he had arrived in and then drove that vehicle over our officer, causing some fairly significant abdominal injuries.
So you say they're abdominal injuries. What can you list the injuries that the officer has?
Without getting into great detail, we know that he suffered a broken pelvis and some other internal injuries as a result of the incident, quite significant, clearly.
Are these life-changing?
Difficult to give a prognosis at the moment. They're certainly potentially life-changing. We're relieved to say that as things stand, we know them not to be life-threatening.
Is his wife with him in hospital? Because I've heard he's married.
Yeah, so his wife is aware of the incident and is with him at this time.
What's been the overriding emotion of officers that either know the officer involved or work closely with him?
So I think the overriding sentiment for all officers is one of shock. You know, these incidents are fortunately not every day. They're not incredibly common, but you know, when they do happen, it's very sobering because it reminds everyone of just how dangerous the profession of policing can be. It's often said that the danger that many people run away from, the officers have to run towards, and certainly on this occasion, our officers were met with an extremely violent individual who's caused very significant injuries. And I think those who know the officer in question know that he's invested his entire career in trying to tackle sort of car thieves and burglars and kind of those sort of offenders who cause the most harm to our society. And he was doing what he's done diligently for many years now when he suffered the injuries.
You've just gone into a little bit of background there. Can you go into any more background of what the officer has done, how long he's been at West Midlands Police, etc.?
Sure. So it's 17 years been with West Midlands Police, of which the last 12 have been serving as a traffic officer, and the kind of primary duty of traffic officers is, as I say, kind of dealing with vehicle-borne offenders, so dealing with sort of car thieves and burglars and so on and so forth. That's the career he's been doing for many years. He's a second-generation police officer. His father served with West Midlands Police as well, so as you can see, he's kind of policing's in his blood. It's the kind of his calling, if you will. And as I say, what he was doing yesterday was no different to what he's done every day for the last sort of nearly 2 decades of his career.
And is this the first time that he's met any sort of violence towards him, or?
I think most officers who serve a career of that length will at some point have suffered some sort of injury or faced violence. Certainly this is going to be the most significant injuries that he's faced.
Is there a fear that this will become commonplace?
I think it's reasonable to say that unfortunately these events do occur from time to time. We've seen what's just happened in the Met, so there are situations where officers will face very violent offenders, and when they do, there is a risk of these serious injuries. I think suggesting it will become commonplace, that's not a concern we have. Fortunately, these sorts of offenders are not every day and they're not common.
Is there a message to anyone that would want to carry out such an attack on an officer?
The obvious message is don't. We have a suspect in custody for the incident now. They were detained a short while away from the scene. They will be facing the strongest